One of the main obligations or commitments or dedications or I'm lacking the proper word here, but the main thrust of the efforts of the Republican Party and Donald Trump and Republican governors, particularly Republican governors like Greg Abbott and Ron DeSantis, who want to run for president and are trying to raise their profile in the national media. One of their main efforts is to crash the American economy. Now, this is not rocket science, right? This is not some, complex legal or political theory that I'm sharing with you here. This is conventional wisdom. Everybody understands this. You go back through the history of the United States, literally all the way back to the founding of the Republic, and what you find is that whenever the economy goes in the tank, the party in power suffers in the next election. It's just that simple. This is why Donald Trump was fighting people wearing masks and staying home from work in 2020, because he saw an election coming in November of 2020 and was thinking, if this economy goes in the tank, I won't get reelected. And he was right on that, by the way. It's exactly what happened. The economy went in the crapper and everybody voted for Democrats. House, Senate, White House. So the bet that they made as soon as they came into office, you recall, Mitch McConnell saying that he was completely dedicated. His number one project was to block the Biden agenda, just like, back in 2008, he said his number one mission was to make Barack Obama a one-term president. Well, it's the same deal. Mitch McConnell cares more about politics than he does America. He cares more about his own power than he does about America. He cares more about his own donors than he does about America. And he's not shy about saying so. But it's not just him. I mean, it's right across the board. And the way that these guys are trying to crash the economy is by encouraging people who listen to their media, who watch, Fox so-called News and OAN and these other right-wing networks, who listen to right-wing hate radio, who read all the thousands of different right-wing blogs and news sites and message boards and everything else on the internet, people who inhabit all of these right-wing Facebook private groups, is to have all of them discourage people from getting vaccinated and encourage people who are not vaccinated to get out there and spread the disease around. I just saw a map of incidents of COVID in the United States. The state right now, when you look at a three-week window, comparing now to 3 weeks ago, the state with the absolute highest incidence, more than a 200% increase, no other state has hit this, is, guess what? Kristi Noem, South Dakota. Who is Kristi Noem? She's a Republican who wants to run for president and the governor of South Dakota. And she invited 700,000 people into her state for the Sturgis motorcycle rally. And now South Dakota has the highest rate of increase in COVID of any state in the United States. And as we speak, those people are riding their motorcycles back home. And pretty soon you're going to see, Sturgis rally deaths popping up just like you did a year ago, when reasonable medical researchers were able to track thousands of cases of COVID from the 200,000 person Sturgis rally a year ago. This is a 700,000 person rally. They were able to track thousands of cases of COVID and hundreds of deaths directly to that decision that the governor of South Dakota, Kristi Noem, made. And she made that decision again. Why are governors doing this? Well, A, they want their own state's economies to keep going, sort of. But B, there's this, the thing that's driving this at the national level is if they can crash the entire country's economy, if they can crash California's economy, if they can crash New York's economy by having, like here in Oregon, in Multnomah County, we're doing pretty well. This is the county that encompasses Portland. It's very blue. We have a really high vaccination rate. Our state overall is over 75%. But there's a whole bunch of red counties where COVID is not only exploding, but their hospitals are overwhelmed and overloaded, and they're sending them into the blue counties. And this is being replicated in city after city and county after county and state after state all across the United States. And now President Fauci, now President Biden's COVID czar, his advisor, Anthony Fauci, has come out and said, this is an analysis by Stephen Collinson over at CNN. It says, President Joe Biden just got some deeply unwelcome news. The pandemic that he was elected to end could drag on deep into a midterm election year with all the political and economic destruction that could bring. Dr. Anthony Fauci said that the crisis won't be under control until spring of next year. And even then, it will require most American vaccine skeptics to change their minds, which is pretty unlikely. Although a lot of them may die. I think, this is not that's, I don't see that as a solution to anything. 1,000 people died from COVID yesterday. How many of them were Republicans and Republican supporters? Probably 900. Well, actually, probably 300 or 400. And the rest were simply, people who got in their way, people who had to go to work, people who this is just a tragedy. The analysis over at CNN is as if the emergency goes on that long, it will offer an opening for Republicans who are seeking to brand Biden's presidency a failure. Donald Trump, in fact, just a couple of days ago said that Biden has surrendered on both COVID and Afghanistan. Right. It was Trump who signed the surrender agreement with Afghanistan, who released the leader who is now the president from prison and who released 5,000 of their fighters and who shut down 10 of our Air Force bases in Afghanistan. That was Trump. Biden has now gotten over 30,000. The last number I saw was over 60,000, which is like hard to believe. But he's got some mind-boggling number of people out of Afghanistan already. I mean, this is turning into a very successful program rather than the unsuccessful program that Donald Trump ran. We're getting people out of Afghanistan in the middle of a pandemic, for goodness sake. And yet Republicans are still trying to do everything they can to hurt this country because they think that will hurt the president of the United States and his party. And I'm wondering, and I honestly don't know the answer to this. At a certain level, it has to do with how malinformed or misinformed the American public are. At another level, it has to do with how effectively our news media are actually covering what's going on. But if Republicans are successful at keeping vaccination rates really low in a bunch of states and counties, and as a consequence of that, our hospitals get overwhelmed, restaurants and stores can't even staff themselves because their employees are sick. Even their vaccinated employees are coming down with something that is like, the most god-awful flu you ever had. If they can succeed, if these Republicans who are trying to sabotage President Biden and his agenda, if they can succeed in doing that, in the elections that are coming up in 15 months, more or less, who's going to get the blame? Is it going to be the Republicans? Are people going to see through this? Are people going to realize that, oh yeah, the GOP did this to us? Or is it going to be the Democrats because they're in power? I honestly don't know the answer to that question, but I'm suspecting, if history is any guide, that it's probably going to be the Democrats who are going to get blamed. Although, in 1936, Franklin Roosevelt was actually putting the economy back together.